Good morning. I'm Bart Davis. I'm chairman of the Georgia Cotton Commission. I, and along with my members of the commission, would like to welcome you to our 11th annual meeting. At this time, I would like to recognize our committee. Y'all would just stand when I call your name. Lee Crumley, Bullitt County. Stephen Means, Wayne County. Matt Coley, Dooley. Jimmy Webb, Calhoun. Chris Hopkins, Toombs. John Ruart, Morgan County. And I'd like to recognize our EXO officials, which I don't think either one of them's here today, and that's Ag Commissioner Gary Black and Georgia Farm Bureau President Gerald Long. At this time, I'd like to recognize some special guests we have here with us today. Start off with, I have two of our commission past chairmen, Mike Lucas. Where's Mike? Mr. Louis Perry. I'd also like to recognize Joe West, Assistant Dean here at UGA. Alan Moore, Associate Dean for Research. John McCann, Associate Dean for Extension. Rachel Santos, UGA Government Relations. Jim Davis, National Cotton Council Representative. Jody Redding, he's from Senator Isaac's office. He was here at UCAC. We also have with us today with our new president for Southern Cotton Growers, Mr. Neil Isbell. Stand up, Mr. Neil, so everybody can see. And David Rupenecker, he's also with Southern Cotton Growers. I want to thank all our sponsors today and urge each and every one of you all to stop and visit with them. We appreciate your attendance, and after hearing from our speakers, which we have some really good speakers today, I think is going to share some good information with us. We hope that you all will return home with renewed enthusiasm for cotton and be impressed with the results of your investment in Georgia Cotton Commission. At this time, Richard Seaton, our executive director, will give a commission update.
Thank you, Bart. Appreciate everybody being here today, and looks like we got a great crowd. Hopefully you'll hear a lot of good news today, and most importantly, you're going to hear what your investment in your checkoff program do, both through the Georgia Cotton Commission and the Cotton Research and Promotion Program. Let's see here if I can figure this thing out. There we go. Excuse me, I'm a little technically challenged here. You know, we could not do what we do for this meeting if we didn't have our sponsors. Y'all can see them there. You'll see their logos on several pieces of signage around. Make sure you go by and visit with them and thank them for helping us make this a successful meeting and a nice day for everybody. As y'all know, y'all's assessment to the commission is $1 a bale. Our majority of the budget goes towards organizational support. You're going to hear from Reece Langley from the National Cotton Council in a bit. You've seen, I've been introduced to President Isbell and David Rupenecker from Southern Cotton Growers. They're our regional organization. We spend about 38% of our budget on research. Promotion and education is about 11%. And you're going to hear the real professionals talk about promotion in a little while with Stacey, Gorman, and Hake. They'll give you a good overview of what's happening through the Cotton Research and Promotion Program and from Cotton Incorporated. And about 13% of our budget goes towards operations. Research obviously is one of our big focuses. What you've heard in the breakout sessions this morning, as well as those this afternoon, you got a tremendous amount of money invested in those, and I know your commission staff, your commission members, we make an effort to make sure that every dollar is spent wisely and is put into programs that will return investments to you and hopefully make you more efficient, more competitive as we move along. As you can see, in calendar year 16, we funded a little bit over $628,000 worth of research through 20 research projects. In calendar year 17, we're funding 22, or y'all are funding 22 projects to the tune of about $645,000. We support about 25 scientists and staff and support positions for them. And also, when you attend your county production meetings, y'all are buying your supper, your breakfast, or your lunch at those meetings. So we thank you for that support. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this to y'all's attention. We're fortunate. Cotton Incorporated has a program called State Support Program, and we get a generous allocation for research for them. And in my comments a little bit later, I'll show you how we've dovetailed into that, and some of our work is being picked up and we're being part of their efforts at a national level. Every June, we have a research review day. The commission and our advisors come down. We spend the greater portion of a day talking to scientists, and we feel like that's very important because, number one, the commission members, the better they understand these projects, their goals and whatever, the better job we're going to do in fine-tuning those things for what you producers need. We also have a annual cotton and peanut field day in September. This basically shows, cotton and peanut farmers are the same person, so we have a good opportunity for you to see how both those checkoff programs are working for you. A couple of things that are new this year, or not new, but we try to address problems as they come along. Obviously, bacterial blight has been an issue. We're partnering with the college this year to partially fund a postdoc student for Dr. Kimmerite to look into this, and what we're trying to do there is figure it out and give you a better way or better pathway to manage these pests. We're also, and we ask you to support too, that the college is asking the General Assembly for a special allocation in the supplemental budget for the whitefly initiative. We want to, what their goal is there is to blitz this thing, find out why we got eaten up with them so quickly, and here again find better ways to manage it. And a couple of other things, I mentioned just a moment ago, excuse me, some of the research that you've invested in, and now we're beginning to partner up with Cotton Incorporated. George Validas does a lot of sensor work. We're beginning to integrate those programs even more into the national research programs, and as sustainability gets to be a larger and larger portion of concern to our customers, these are things that we're working on. As a matter of fact, Matt Coley and Ronnie are both on the National Cotton Council Sustainability Committee, and while we have come a long way in improving our sustainability, our industry has set some pretty strong goals to be met by, I believe, 2020. So hopefully we'll continue there because we're getting a lot of pressure from our customers and their customers wanting to make sure that the products that they're buying are grown in a sustainable and an environmentally sound manner. Promotion and education. We do school programs. We reached about 13,000 students in 17, and we also go to community events as well as schools. The upper photo there, the gentleman with the towel over his shoulder, that's a towel made by 1888 Mills up in Griffin, Georgia, and that's part of our sponsorship of the Georgia Public Television's high school football for this year. And you can see some photos there at the bottom of different groups that we've talked to. I think down at the very far right-hand bottom, it was we had a state legislators tour at the Sun Belt Expo that was organized by the Georgia Agribusiness Council, and we were able to be a part of that. Here are a couple of ads that we've done this year. First one over there, the Homegrown with Care. That's in Atlanta Parents Magazine. There were about 90,000 copies of that sent out. And here again, our message is homegrown with care. We want to make sure that people understand you know, it's kind of hard to find cotton clothing stores today. We're encouraging our people to look at labels, look for cotton products, and we feel like advertising in these type of publications will hopefully lead to that. The one on the right you see there is an advertisement we did in Farm and Garden magazine. Here again, trying to point out not only is cotton a fiber, it's also a food product, and we hope to continue doing those. If you see that small tag in the middle, we were able to partner up with Commissioner Black and his team to come up with a all Georgia grown and sewn t-shirt. And these shirts are available. If you go to the Georgia Grown website, you'll be able to purchase them. The only thing that's going to be marked when you get it is see that little tag in the middle. And those are going to be blank shirts. You can get them for your friends, your business, or whatever. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. We sent out about, in 17, about 77 Georgia counties, and our education kit to 21 states. We try to give them to schools, farm bureaus, extension offices, and it's a great educational tool, and if you or any of your friends need one, please let us know. Some of the policy updates, you can hear that from the real pro Reece Langley and Ronnie in just a few minutes, but some of the things that we got accomplished this year is an improvement in the crop insurance quality loss programs. We joined a number of producer organizations across the Cotton Belt expressing our concern of the lack of viability of some of the traits that we are purchasing now. We continue to comment on the WOTUS rules. As a matter of fact, I just saw yesterday where the case is probably going to be brought up in the Supreme Court, and that's something that still hangs over us. And we got to be very careful. And here again, that's where a lot of our research is done to show them what good stewards we are of water, our most important natural resource. We also do a lot of efforts or write a lot of comment letters on different crop protectants. You can see those on our Georgia Cotton Commission website. If you see one there, I encourage you, if you have a few minutes, write a comment. It helps, believe it or not, it very much helps, and we try to do everything we can to keep the tools in the chest for you as we get into an even increasing regulatory environment. I want to thank you again for our support, our sponsors. I also want to thank Martha Harris and Taylor Seals who work with me, and also for our commission members who give us a job and give us the opportunity to work on y'all's behalf. You see our contact information there. And please remember, it's y'all's commission. You don't need to come pat us on the back and tell us what we're doing, that we've done well. Please tell us what you need to do. And thank y'all very much for your time and attention and attendance today.
Morning. Morning. Y'all hear me good enough? I couldn't hardly hear Richie. Could y'all hear Richie? Is that better? Y'all awake? Okay, good. All right, thank you. I want to do something briefly before I introduce Stacey Gorman, works for the Cotton Board. You know, Richie and Taylor and Martha put a great group of speakers here for y'all. For us, you know, we've got representatives from the Cotton Board, we got somebody from CI, and we've got somebody from the National Cotton Council. Now, how many of us in the room know the difference in all three of those and what all three of them do separately? You know, I did not know till I got involved. There's a lot of us that don't know, so I'm going to take a minute and try to explain it really quick to y'all. The Cotton Board is a checkoff program. I'm sure everybody in here knows what a checkoff program is. the funds that come out of the cotton that you grow go to the cotton board. We have a set of importers. Funds come from the importers too. Funny thing about importers, a lot of times when you say the word importer, you see growers kind of cringe. Let me tell y'all, I've been working with the importers for about 10 years, and Van will tell you this, and Ronnie will tell you this, Bart can. We got a great group of importers, and all they want to do is help the program. Years ago, it was kind of an ugly situation. It's so good now. Louis, you'd be really proud. It's a great, smooth organization right now, the way it works. But that's the Cotton Board's job. Then their job is oversight of Cotton Incorporated. Cotton Incorporated is the contractor that the Cotton Board hires to do promotion and research for all of us in this room to help promote our product. Then we got the National Cotton Council. We can't function without either. The Cotton Council is our lobbying group that goes to Washington that helps us. And right now, at this point in time, I don't know, this probably happened before, but we're number 2 in producing cotton in the United States, and I'm sure all of y'all know that. I don't ever see us overtaking Texas. But in that respect, you have great leadership from the state of Georgia in all these national organizations. I mean, everybody knows Ronnie Lee. Ronnie's the chairman of the Cotton Council. We got Van Murphy. Van's in the rotation to be chairman of Cotton Incorporated in a few years. I'm on the Cotton Board. I'm in a position to be in the rotation. I'm in the rotation now. So I don't know if Georgia's ever had this many people at all 3 levels at one time. It's really good for y'all. Georgia is represented well because all these people work hard for Georgia. We're going to give our opinion. We're going to push Georgia first. We all learned that probably from Louis, pushing Georgia first. But it's a group organization, all of us, and we all work together for the benefit of the cotton industry. That's what we all need. It's exciting now with prices kind of getting a little bit better, where we think we can make a little money and do a little better in the cotton industry. It's been tough these last few years, but things look good. And things look pretty good in Washington too, and Ronnie will update y'all on that. With all that being said, I'm going to introduce Stacey Gorman. Stacey is the Director of Communications. She started in 2008, and I didn't realize that until yesterday when she was in my office and we were talking, and I showed her a picture. And she said that was one of my first meetings, and I didn't realize she had started there. I've been there a long time. But she went to school at University of Central Arkansas. Let's see, what did Stacey say? She said small but fun. She does a great job at communications. You just wait till you see some of her videos. She does a super job. Her degree was in public writing, public relations, and you can tell it. She does an excellent job. We're lucky we have her. She writes stories that you see in Cotton Farming, Cotton Grower Magazine, and she does a great job for us, for all of us, in communications of what's going on in the Cotton Board. With that, I'll introduce Stacey.
Well, good morning, and thank y'all so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here and tell you about what the Cotton Research and Promotion Program is doing on behalf of cotton growers. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Jimmy for introducing me. This is my first time in South Georgia. I'm from Arkansas, and I have already had a crash course in how to pronounce Albany, Georgia, where I flew into. There was some confusion whenever I told Ronnie that I was flying into Albany, and he said, "No, you're not." So I flew into Albany yesterday, and just really happy to be here and visit with you all. So Jimmy did a great job of reminding you all what the Cotton Board does. I'm just going to run through it one more quick time. So at the Cotton Board, we collect the checkoff dollars. So we collect the money that you pay into the Cotton Research and Promotion Program. And what we do with that is we oversee Cotton Incorporated. And so they're the ones who are actually there on the ground doing the research and promotion for cotton. So we collect that money, and then we give them some strategic direction. And then my job, which is I think the best job in the industry, is I get to communicate back with growers about what your money is being used for. And so that's what I'm going to do today. Quickly, Cotton Incorporated's budget. So this is the amount that we collect from the cotton checkoff. We invest that into Cotton Incorporated, and you can see kind of how the budget has fluctuated over the years. At one point, we were funding an $83 million program, but then as acres declined and prices shift, we got down to $70 million. This year in 2018, we are funding a $74 million program. So you're going to hear from Dr. Hake from Cotton Incorporated in a bit, and he's going to tell you a lot of the research side of what's going on at Cotton Incorporated. But I wanted to take this time to bring you up to speed on some of the things that may be a bit behind the scenes for you all. This is some of the programs that we're doing to promote your cotton to consumers. It's one of our Cotton Incorporated's main missions is to increase the demand for and profitability of cotton. So I'm going to talk about increasing the demand for it, how we get consumers to want to purchase cotton, how we keep cotton in the forefront of their minds when they're out there shopping, making their purchasing decisions. So I'll go through some of those now. For a long time, you probably remember the Fabric of Our Lives commercials. So this was kind of our flagship advertising program, Cotton, the touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives. And while we still utilize that in a lot of our efforts, we're continuing to evolve our advertising strategy. So Cotton Incorporated came up with a new commercial that launched last year. The campaign is called Leave Comfort to Clothes. And what the story really tells is when you're wearing cotton, you don't have to worry about feeling comfortable. The clothes take care of that. And so you can then step out of your comfort zone and take a risk or maybe do something you've always wanted to do. This new commercial, which I'm going to show you in just a second, launched, like I said, last year. And these are aimed towards women. So don't be discouraged if you maybe haven't seen this commercial. It's aimed to women 18 to 49 because we find those are the people who are out there making the purchasing decisions. And the commercial runs on major networks such as ABC, Fox, the CW, and then we place the ads on some cable channels such as TLC or HGTV. So here is one of the quick new commercials.
Taking a chance is tough. Washing cotton is easy.
So with some reduced budgets, we had to go from 30-second commercials to 15-second commercials. So we have a series of 3 of these that will be continuing to run throughout the year. But as you can see, it calls out kind of the easy care message. You know, taking a chance is hard, but washing cotton is easy. Just reminding consumers that if they're wearing cotton, they have less to worry about. So we're excited about that. Another partnership that we have is with a fashion blogger. Her name is Stacey Dupree. She's known as the Damsel in Dior. Stacey is a really unique brand ambassador for us. She is not only an icon in the fashion space, but she grew up on a cotton farm in Texas. Her dad's a grower, and she is recognized across the world as really a true icon in fashion blogging. So we decided to team up with Stacey to be a brand ambassador for cotton. She has done a series of blog posts. She attends events on behalf of cotton and creates a series of videos where she reminds the people who follow her blog, cotton is grown on a farm. Cotton is a livelihood for people around our country. And she does a really good job of kind of tying those two worlds together. She has several videos that she's done. This new one is Cotton Incorporated asked her to explain what she loves about cotton. So we'll watch that real quick.
Anyone who knows me knows I'm a true lover of cotton. So when Cotton Incorporated asked me to list out all the reasons why I love the fabric of our lives, it wasn't easy because there's not just a few reasons. After all, cotton can and does do everything. Cotton can be soft or rugged. It can be fashionable or functional, absorbent or water repellent, simple or high tech. It's natural, breathable, comfortable, easy. It's happy. Dependable, lasting, functional, authentic, classic, mindful, uncomplicated, effortless, stylish, light, smart, refreshing, enduring, active, dynamic. It's long-lasting, strong, trendy, cozy, polished, neutral, savvy. There, that's my short list. But my number one reason is that cotton comes from the farm, my family farm, where my dad has been growing cotton for 41 years. Cotton is not only the fabric of our lives, but it supports people's lives. It creates jobs, and it's a part of my personal history, which is why every time I put on a piece of cotton clothing, it's almost like I'm putting on a piece of cotton.
So we're really excited about that. JC has really done a great job of reminding the people who buy your product where it comes from and why it's important. So we'll be continuing that promotion with her. All of these videos are on her blog, and then they're also on thefabricofourlives.com, on Cotton's social media. So we really have a pretty large reach with those. So we have a new project called the Digital Burst Project. So when Cotton Incorporated was created, it was created to drive demand for cotton by positioning it as a better alternative to synthetic fibers. And this remains a top priority. We want to remind people why they should choose cotton over synthetics or polyesters. And we have typically not been quite so aggressive in calling out some of the benefits of cotton over these other fibers, but we decided that, it was time. It was time to tell the truth about why cotton is better. And so we have a series of short little digital bursts. These are meant to be shared on social media, and they directly call out why cotton is better than synthetics. And so this first one that I'm going to show you talks about how odor washes out of cotton better than polyester. Be cotton conscious. And those are just really quick social media things that are easy to share. And we encourage you, if you come across those, we'd love for you to share it. You have a big stake in this, so it's a good message to get out. So beyond consumer marketing, like I said earlier, my favorite part of my job is doing producer outreach. So we collect this money, we invest in Cotton Incorporated. They do all of these great projects, some of which you just had the chance to see. But it's our job at the Cotton Board to remind you guys, here's what's going on with your money. Here is what you're investing in. And so we do producer outreach. One of the first things I'm going to show you, Cotton Incorporated has launched a new website to give the cotton growing community easy access to a lot of cotton-related information. Research projects. Cotton Cultivated is the name of the site, and if you haven't visited there, I encourage you to. It provides a portal that integrates websites, downloadable documents, social media, news feeds, all of these places in one hub. So if you need cotton information, this is a great spot to start. The Cotton Board, we have regional communication managers. And their job is to really go out to the grower and kind of be our feet on the ground. And so for your area, I hope you've all met Monty Bain. He's in the room with us. If you haven't, I encourage you to find him. Monty is the authority on what's going on with the program. He can let you know anything that you want. If you have any questions about how your investment's being spent, find Monty. Our regional communication managers are active at trade shows. They speak at grower meetings, and host producer tours, which I'll tell you about in just a bit. The Cotton Board launched a new campaign. It's a grower-directed campaign called Renew Your Faith in Cotton. The basic message of this campaign is that cotton's future is renewable. Listen, we know that it's, the past few years, it's been a tough time to be a cotton grower. Prices were down, policy wasn't quite where we wanted it to be, market share was declining. And so we came out with this campaign to really give growers the opportunity to see some of the new markets that Cotton Incorporated was working on your behalf. The campaign gave us a chance to tell the story of the work being done and to introduce growers to some of the most exciting new markets for cotton. We have a print advertising campaign. It has 3 ads focused on cotton as the food of the future and the fiber of the future. I hope you've seen these. We run them in Cotton Farming Magazine, Cotton Grower, Farm Press, and we also have a website. It's renew.cottonboard.org. We do radio ads, digital ads, and social media around this campaign. We're trying to make sure we reach every generation of cotton grower, so we want to be wherever you are. The message actually seemed to resonate pretty well, and last year this campaign won first place in the National Agri-Marketing Awards. So you invested in a first place award-winning campaign, so you can be really proud of that. I know it's award season, so you can all say that you've won a big award because you have. This year we decided to take the campaign a little bit further, and we wanted to talk to growers about why they have faith in cotton. We visited 2 growers, one in Arkansas and one in Mississippi, and that was just because that's where we're close to, and we're trying to be conscientious of your budgets. I would love to have a Georgia grower in the videos eventually. But we asked them why they have faith in cotton. So we visited them during planting and then again during harvest to see how their crop turned out. I'm going to show you one of the videos. This is from Patrick Johnson. He is from Tunica, Mississippi, and this was at harvest on his farm, and he's talking about why he has faith in cotton.
I'm Patrick Johnson, and we're on our farm in Tunica, Mississippi. We have 2 products that we're producing out there in the cotton field. We're producing the mint, which I think is the first thing that comes to people's minds, but there's also cottonseed, and it does have many beneficial uses, and I've met many farmers who talk about the benefits of cottonseed feed for dairy cattle, and cottonseed oil has its benefits, and I think that's another important job that Cotton Incorporated does for the farmer, is to figure out how to make that cottonseed better and more marketable as well. Because of the work that's being done by Cotton Incorporated and others, we're starting to see some demand develop for cotton, and we're hopeful that we can get to a place where we have a steady cotton industry in our area. I've been really impressed to see the group of people who make up the Cotton Board and Cotton Incorporated, and the way it brings growers and importers and just people from different places in the cotton supply chain together to work together to make sure from beginning to end that U.S. cotton is the best product it can be. From the experience I've had of being able to go to Cotton Incorporated's headquarters and see the work they're doing, you just realize that there's really nobody doing it better than Cotton Incorporated. It really does give me a peace of mind when I think about how my cotton crop will have a place in the world market, to know Cotton Incorporated and the research promotion program are working to make sure that U.S. cotton has a competitive advantage on the world market.
Series of 4 of those videos. If you'd like to see them, you can find them on our Facebook page or on renew.cottonboard.org. Well, I might be finished because I'm not seeing anything else come up. I mean, I really can't cut it off. So these are, I'm really wrapping it up, I promise. You heard Patrick mention that seeing Cotton Incorporated was really an eye-opener for him. And we have a program, our Cotton Board Producer Tours, where we take growers to the headquarters in Cary, North Carolina, and really show you the world-class research center that they have there. We'll be doing 3 tours in 2018. We have one coming up in February, one in March, and then in June we're doing the women's tour. And I encourage you, if you have not been to Cotton Incorporated and you would like to go, remember Ronnie, find him and he can get you signed up to go on a tour. It is the best way to see what's being done with that checkoff dollar. And I encourage you, if you haven't gone, find one of us and we'll get you signed up. And this is just I know I've showed a lot of videos. This is the last one, and it's just a quick overview of what you'll see if you come on a tour.
The Cotton Incorporated World Headquarters in Cary, North Carolina is home to experts and state-of-the-art laboratories that represent a scaled-down version of the entire cotton supply chain. Cotton Incorporated is a not-for-profit company whose mission is to increase the demand and profitability of cotton. Funded by U.S. upland cotton growers and U.S. importers of cotton products, Cotton Incorporated does not make or sell anything. Instead, it is in the business of helping cotton businesses grow for research and promotion. Cotton Incorporated is a one-stop resource of information and expertise.
So just to wrap up, a few ways, if you find yourself having questions about what the Cotton Research and Promotion Program is doing on your behalf, we'd love for you to get engaged with us on social media. We have Facebook and Twitter, and then our website, cottonboard.org. On our website, you can sign up to receive Cotton Leader. It's our monthly email newsletter. It used to be that little brown piece of paper that you got in the mail every month. We stopped mailing them and we have them digitally now. So love for you to sign up to get that newsletter. And thank you for having me. I'll be around. I'm going to come to lunch. So if you think of anything or have any questions about what we're doing on your behalf, just catch me and I'll be happy to talk with you about it. Thank you again.
Good morning. I'm Van Murphy. I'm your treasurer for Cotton Incorporated. And I've had an exciting time getting to know what's going on at Cotton Incorporated and encourage you to go visit. If you get an opportunity, give them money and make an appointment to go see that because it does great things with cotton. I've got the pleasure this morning of introducing Hake. Cater is the Vice President of Agriculture and Environmental Research at Cotton Incorporated. Cater's responsibility is for cotton production and research. You know, he works with a team of 8 scientists who develop and support cotton farming in the U.S. You know, Cater, when he went to work at Cotton Incorporated, he had been at Delta Pine, and they made a merge with Monsanto. And I got the word from Louis that he told them not to rehire Cater because he needed to come to Cotton Incorporated. So they took Louis' advice and didn't hire him back, and he got to Cotton Incorporated. So Louis, we thank you that you was involved in hiring Cater. But Cater was educated in California. We're not going to hold that against him because he can relate to a South Georgia guy in very well. We appreciate Cater. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Dan. Sure appreciate it. Okay, I'm seeing what I want to see here.
No, I don't think that's a good idea. What is that now? There we go. Excellent. Good. I'm super pleased to be with you. Not only because you guys are the second largest cotton state, and I totally agree. If you ever exceed Texas in bales, the U.S. has a serious problem. You know, considering they've got the ability to put 7 million acres into cotton and even more. But you guys are the absolute leaders in cotton innovation. You know, the collaboration that you have between your university and the growers through the Georgia Cotton Commission is just unprecedented across the U.S. So it's just a delight to work not only with the growers here, but also the scientists and the extension people. So my hat's off to you. I'd like to give you my message of optimism. I'm super optimistic about cotton right now. We've got just a lot of things going our way. Now, those people that are intimately associated with cotton know that we also have some headwinds facing our way as well. And this is one of the big headwinds that's really pushing back against us. And our consumers are losing their interest in buying textiles. This looks at the different generations. I'm a boomer, and each of those is about 20 years. And so we really look to the youngest consumers, the people that are 18 to 25, to be doing the serious investment in textiles. And they still have a 31%. This is their shopping preference. If you look, they're a little bit more than the other age groups. But if you look at what's happening to the youngest people, so the millennials, the millennials, when they were the Generation Z, about 20 years ago, they were at 52% in terms of their purchasing preference for cotton, just through the roof. And if we look now at the boomers like myself, we're really not putting money into textiles. Well, one, we like to eat way too much and spend money on those kind of things, but also the youngest group that we look to, they're getting interested in wanting to buy electronics, iPhones, iPads. So we've got a consumer that's really shifted away from textiles. One of the other big headwinds that's pushing up against us is the competition from polyester. And the light blue line or box there, pie, that's cotton. And you can see that cotton has done well against staple polyester, which is the dark blue. But the one that's really a challenge for us is the filament. That's the yellow line. That's the one that's just absolutely taken off. And the reason that's a challenge for us is that cotton can be blended with staple polyester. You can make, the 50-50 and 60-40 and 40-60 type garments. But the filament, those things are a mile long or a kilometer long, and they don't blend with cotton. You can put them in a core and very expensively put cotton on the outside and have these filaments on the inside, but they create a garment that's very difficult to get cotton into. This is obviously another big headwind going on this year, is the price of cottonseed with a big crop that's way down compared to where it's been the last couple of years. And I just mentioned that anytime the price of cottonseed is anticipated to go down, we remind the dairymen that it's cheap and stock up and buy it like crazy, because they often pull it out of the ration when it's expensive. And the last headwind that's really hitting you guys hard are some diseases and insect problems in this area. And so that's part of the reason I started out talking about the strength of your research community, your research and extension community, in addressing these directly. So with all those headwinds, why would an old guy like myself mention that cotton growers have to step up to the plate? Because we're going to need every last bale that the U.S. cotton producer can generate over the next 5-10 years. I think the forces that are in play are so strong for cotton that we're looking at a lot of need to push up yields and to push up the profitability so you can produce those cottons on a sustainable basis.
So the first thing I'd want to talk about is that our competitors' dark secrets that they've tried to keep bottled up, they're coming out. And they're really dark. And I'll talk about one of those in a little bit of detail. Second thing is that our secrets, our dark secrets, aren't all that dark. And they've been out there for everyone to see, and they're being addressed, particularly with growers in Georgia. And we're over the hump of attacking cotton because it's out there. We've shared the information. I'll give you an update on that. And then the last thing is I want to give you a little bit of a glimpse into the future about the super exciting things that are coming along that's going to make cotton even more efficient, more sustainable, more profitable, and hopefully demand a higher place with the consumer. So let's start with the fun stuff, beating up on the competition. And we haven't had a whole lot of optimism up until 2016 when this report was first released. Patagonia, which is not a friend of cotton, honestly, but at least they're willing to put science into textiles. And they funded the University of California at Santa Barbara, to look at the challenge of microplastic, microparticles, microfilaments. You hear all three of those words. And they released in 2016 an 80-page document that summarized the research and the findings up to that time. And what they showed is that microfibers are shed from every single textile, whether it's a polyester or a nylon or rayon or even cotton. You get, every time you wash a garment, you get little bits of fibers that come off. And they also focused on the fact that the synthetic fibers produce microparticles that are all over the world. They sample the oceans anywhere and they find them. They look on land and they find them. These things are ubiquitous. A report in The Guardian sampled a whole bunch of sea salt. You buy a bottle of sea salt and it's got microplastics in it. These things are all over. They're also hazardous at multiple levels. The one that's the best documented is that because they have a really high surface area, they grab onto real nasties out in the ocean. We've got what's called these persistent organic pollutants, things like PCBs and DDTs that have been put out in the ocean for decades, and these microplastics are perfect for grabbing onto them along with heavy metals like mercury, and the fish eat them. And then the bigger fish eat them, and then we eat those fish, so they get accumulated. Also, Patagonia and other companies have looked really, really hard at a solution for this, and they don't see any easy solutions. They're very, very difficult to get out of a wash machine. And probably the most significant thing is that this problem has come about, they've created themselves. It's the innovation in the textile industry, particularly the polyester industry, that has really created this problem. When I was in high school in the 60s, I occasionally would buy a surfer shirt. Van let out the story that it's totally true, that I grew up in California, high school in California. So you have to wear a surfer shirt, and these things were made out of monofilament fishing line, and they felt like it. Well, no longer do they do that. They've learned how to make these products extremely innovative, and that's created a problem for them. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about what their innovation has led to, and this is a cross-section through some of the latest polyester and synthetic fibers. And we were all familiar with pasta, and you know how pasta is extruded in just about any type of shape from dough. And you can add to that pasta, you can add shrimp coloring, it's not shrimp, but spinach coloring, or squid coloring with the black pasta. They can add just about anything they want. And it's the same thing with synthetics. When they extrude these, they can make any shape, and they can put in any weird type chemicals that they want. When you see polyester, it's polyester plus a whole bunch of other things in there that give it functionality. And I'm going to drill down on the one that's on the lower left, you'll see it right there, and explain how that one has just gotten out of control. This is called Islands of the Sea, and it is extruded basically as a composite yarn. It's like a rope that's produced as a rope, and then that thing is it's woven into fabric, and then once it's in fabric, they dissolve the glue that holds the whole thing together. So a yarn that in cotton might have 20 fibers in the cross section, this sucker has 20,000 fibers in the cross section because they dissolve the glue that holds it together. So these things are so fine that they could not make a garment from it with the traditional method because they just float away in the air. So they produce a product with them glued together and dissolve them. And so you can imagine when you wash that thing, a lot of these ends will break off. It's highly vulnerable to breaking off and creating these microplastics. And just diagrammatically, how that works from a human health impact is that the laundry water gets dumped into sewage treatment plants. It goes into rivers and streams that then goes out into the ocean, and it mixes with the microplastics that are produced from the plastic waste. You know, we dump a lot of plastics into the ocean, and that gets broken down by sunlight and abrasion, and that combines to make even more microparticles that are eaten by fish. Bigger fish eat those, birds eat them, and humans eat them. So it's just a chain that gets accumulated on up. So when this first came out, we decided to see if cotton, how vulnerable were we to this problem. We knew that cotton also sheds these microfibers in the washing, so we wanted to see, before we start talking to people like yourself on this issue, we wanted to fund some research, and Mary Ankeny at Cotton Incorporated corralled the Australians to jointly fund this, and it's done at NC State. This will probably be a 5-year study, but we're releasing data as it comes out. Basically, we're washing garments, taking the microparticles out of that, and then exposing them to various waters to see how they degrade. And obviously the first one you want to do is wastewater effluent, which is what's being done here. And I'll leave this up a little bit because this is extremely good news for cotton and extremely bad news for polyester. So what we're doing here is this is over time, and we run it 170 days right now. And the axis is percent breakdown or biodegradation, and this is in wastewater effluent. That's where it first has an opportunity to break down. And the top line is the check. That is cellulose, which is ground up super, super fine, and you can see that has a normal degradation. But right below that is cotton. And cotton is not ground up, it's just out there as the fibers, so you wouldn't expect it to be broken down as fast by the microorganisms and enzymes. Underneath cotton is rayon, and you can see rayon is not quite as good as cotton in breaking down, and that's what the scientists expected, because rayon, it's not a natural cellulose. So all of the enzymes and bacteria and fungi that evolved over the last hundreds of millions of years to break down cellulose, they're not quite as good at doing rayon. And then next is the 50-50 cotton poly blend. What happened there at about day 100, right? It had chunked through most of the cotton, and all that was left was the poly, and the bottom line is the polyester. So that's why we're talking about this more, because just as everyone expected, cotton has a really good story, and the polyester, this is a problem that I just don't think they can get around. I mentioned that the cotton has warts as well, and with vision from both Cotton Incorporated and National Cotton Council, Mark Lang and Barry Worsham, now about 10 years ago, they decided to dig into it and really see what those warts look like. And it took a lot of bravery on both of them to do, because I remember them saying that if we created information that our competition used against us, there wouldn't be a hole big enough for both Mark Lang and Barry Worsham to hide in. But they went ahead and they funded these life cycle assessments. We're now on the second one, and that's where you look at the entire environmental footprint of your industry. And now the textile industry and the consumer industry, part of the life cycle, that's the same for all fabrics, whether it's a cotton or polyester, largely the same. So we're just going to focus on the agriculture one because that's what's unique with cotton versus synthetics. And so we're just going to look at the parts that ag dominates, and these are all the different environmental impacts that are looked at in this most recent life cycle assessment. And you can see that ag only dominates in the water concerns. Those, the water quality and water consumption, it's the consumers and the textiles that really dominate in those other environmental areas. And if we drill down even further and we look at what parts of ag, it's the ones that we know about. It's irrigation water. And Georgia's on the absolute forefront of being more efficient with irrigation water. And the other big wart that we have out there is fertilizer. And Georgia, again, is on the forefront of being super efficient with our fertilizer. So you guys are taking the critical steps to try to make cotton as clean and sustainable as possible. And then we go a next step further and we say, what does this really mean? Let's put it in context. And we can see that cotton's footprint is minuscule. If you look at the energy and greenhouse gases, that if the entire cotton crop was converted to a shirt, a knit shirt, and washed 20 times, it'd be less than 1% of the human contribution, and that's by clothing meeting half the world's textile needs. So we're less than 1% to clothe half of the world. You know, it's really in context. It's a minor issue. We've got a lot of optimism as well from the growth in what cotton can do. And one of the areas that I've had the fun challenge of shepherding is a biotech strategy to make cotton a lot more useful. And scientists have been able to successfully prevent cottonseed from having a toxin in it called gossipol while leaving it in the rest of the plant. In fact, if the breeders want, they can increase the level of gossipol in the rest of the plant, which adds even more insect control and disease control with that elevated gossipol. But the reason that the growers have supported this has been a long-term project with a lot of science behind it and some false starts and failures to get to this point, is all of those guys on the screen, they can pay a hell of a lot more for their meal than a dairy cow or a feedlot cattle can. And so that means that you can capture greater value for your seed. You produce two products, as that video showed, both the fiber and the seed, and you need to get paid a fair price for both. And getting the gospel out of that allows you to go after these more high-value markets. Another area of optimism on the use of the seed is we're learning that the oil from cottonseed is really a heart-healthy issue. Historically, people have bragged about how good olive oil, the Mediterranean diet is. Well, people have looked at olive oil, but they've never had head-to-head comparisons with cottonseed oil up until recently when two University of Georgia faculty who are hardcore nutrition and human physiology scientists looked at this in detail. And so these are two of your local faculty at Athens, Dr. Patton and Dr. Cooper, who are looking at the effect of cottonseed oil versus olive oil on the heart health of historically olive oil has been given a plus as being heart healthy because it's high in these mono unsaturated fatty acids, the MUFAs at 61%. Well, cotton is high in the polyunsaturated fatty acids. You can see it's 57% with the PUFAs. So radically different oils. And the things that they looked at are the health outcomes. What is cottonseed oil versus olive oil doing for lipids and for diet and for exercise? And this first test that was wrapped up at the end of last year used healthy adult males. The next test will use people like myself that are taking statins or Lipitor and see if that effect holds through with people that are more vulnerable to health. But this was done with healthy males looking at their blood lipids with a diet that was either rich in cottonseed oil or rich in olive oil. And so the cottonseed oil is CSO and the olive oil is the OO. And basically what it shows is all of the bad lipids in our blood, the cholesterol, the triglycerides, and the LDL, those all went down. And the good cholesterol, the HDL, went up. So on all 4 scores, cottonseed oil is substantially better than olive oil on a heart health. And their data shows that there was virtually no impact of the olive oil over that time period with those healthy people. So the cotton, obviously, this was a super surprise, and people really, we met with the National Cottonseed Products Association with their leadership last week to really dig into this data with the scientists, and they reminded us that there's older data from Texas that shows this is going in the right direction, but also one of the scientists that's working on this, he is working with mice. So one scientist is working with humans, the other one's working with mice. And obviously with mice, you can cut them and slice them and look at the livers and do all those things you can't do with humans. And he's showing that he is uncovering the components of cottonseed oil that are providing this nutritional benefit. So the communication part of this that Stacey talked about, we're going to be wrapping that up right away because it's such a wonderful positive story about cottonseed oil and expanding this research to include older adults such as myself. Another big source of optimism is the industry's leadership, particularly the National Cotton Council's leadership in addressing the concern of consumers that they want to buy products and spend their money in a way that they are rewarding industries that have a high level of stewardship and a high level of sustainability. They don't want to pay more for that, but they're demanding it with their purchasing practices. And so the National Cotton Council has just recently, within the last year, actually the last 6 months, set 10-year goals for environmental impact of cotton. And this builds upon the very successful work in field to market that the National Cotton Council was one of the first members. This is what's happened with cotton production in the U.S. The environmental footprint over the last 35 years has had a dramatic reduction. But as you know, customers always want to know, what are you doing for me now? Where are you going with this? I understand you've got a good past, but tell us where you're going. So I've converted the slides into a 10-year, what's happened over the last 10 years, and compared that to what the 10-year goal that the National Cotton Council has set out. As you can see, then some of these goals, like land use, which is basically yield, they're aggressive goals to try to reach. Genetics is going to be a big part of that, but also grower management. And the genetics, I just want to dispel some of the concern that we've gotten into stalled yields. If you look at the U.S. yield as an average, we've shifted massive acreage from California and Arizona and high-yielding areas in the Delta into Texas, some in Kansas, Oklahoma. And so if you just look at the average yield over the U.S., which is the light blue line, you can see it flattened out. But if you look at the average of the states, where each state is basically an individual unit, you can see we keep chunking on up. So yields across the U.S., when looked at not as a U.S., but as individual states, are on this tremendous escalator because of the breeding, but also because of the grower innovation, the grower investment in knowledge and applying that to the field. And I'd just like to share with you some of the optimism for things that are just right around the corner. This is a grower that some even know in Missouri, and he's a long-term no-till. He planted cover crop in an extremely cold, wet spring year, and this was the result. I was out looking at with extremely healthy-looking cotton, but a lot of ragged growth out there, something he had not experienced. He did have a drone. He put that up, was able to look at the field, and saw there was healthy cotton throughout the field. And we talk about that as local data, and that gave him some comfort that things were going okay. Cotton really looked incredibly healthy despite all that cover crop growth there. But what we're really close to doing is having data sharing among growers, which now is what we call big data. And you can imagine, this is Alan, how much comfort he would have had if he had known what had happened if, let's say, 2,000 growers in his community with similar soils and weather over the last 20 years perhaps had had a similar experience, and he could have benefited from the history. That's what we call big data, looking beyond your fence. We're extremely close to that because Apple and iPhones and Google, they're already doing that. In fact, they're going one step further. They're using artificial intelligence to feed you ads and feed you stories. And the scientists think that cotton is going to be an extremely strong recipient for artificial intelligence. And I just wanted to give you an example of how that might work, in that a grower has to be thinking about whether to apply additional fertilizers. Is cover crop going to use fertilizers? And that's an ideally suited problem for artificial intelligence, because you got a lot of data to deal with, a lot of weather scenarios, a lot of uncertainty, and those are the kind of things that chunk through a computer really well. But what is just right within our reach, in fact was demonstrated last year, is to actually use the artificial intelligence to give us new insights. And this was done, I don't know how many of you followed the computer challenge with the world's Go game master. Now, Go is a very, very old board game out of China that people have worked out a strategy for doing that. Well, they trained a computer, or they built a computer that trained itself how to play Go, and the computer beat the world's master at Go by coming up with a totally new strategy for playing the game. One that, this game's thousands of years old. One that people thought was a bad mistake, the computer decided to play on line 5, and that was the winning move. So with artificial intelligence, with this computing power, we have the ability to create insights that we can learn from the machine. And again, with agriculture, I just give you the example, with big data and artificial intelligence, we're going to be able to learn even more and take advantage of what's happening in Microsoft and Google, in Apple and Facebook. That software and innovations will have a strong impact. Another one of the goals that the National Cotton Council set up, very, very aggressive, is to cut soil loss by 50% and reach a point where we are completely in balance on aggregate in the U.S., where there's no more soil that's lost than is actually created. The water efficiency goal, as you can see, is not very aggressive. We've hit 23% reduction in water use per decade over the last 3.5 decades. The goal is 18%, which is backing off a little bit, but partly that's because of Georgia and Texas have had such a strong benefit in using water efficiently that so many of the gains in water use have already come with the installation of pivots and pipe planter, and with drip irrigation and supplemental irrigation. We're at a point where it's going to be very, very difficult to make massive gains like we've had in the past with water. Energy efficiency is also a moderate goal, only about a 15% increase, because so much energy is used in the gin and in harvesting. One of the largest goals is CO2 reduction and nitrous oxide. These are the greenhouse gases that are produced by agriculture. An extremely aggressive goal on the part of the National Cotton Council, 39% over the next decade, just phenomenal. Obviously, this is what's driving the discussion. This is the global change in temperature, 2017 was not as hot globally as the previous 2 years, but also the impact on weather uncertainty. Dry conditions are drier and wet conditions are wetter. One of the ways that people think that those goals will be met with agriculture is storing carbon in the soil, and we're extremely fortunate that there's 3 times more carbon in the soil than the atmosphere. So you can imagine any slight change in soil carbon can have a significant impact on the atmospheric carbon. So a lot of optimism with that. And part of the bragging points that we use with cotton, with people that are concerned about carbon, is that every acre of cotton, just the growing of the cotton produces it sequesters about 400 pounds of carbon. And if you have that in a no-till in the southeast, that's an additional 400 pounds. So a tremendous amount of tremendous role of cotton in addressing the carbon challenge. Soil health was the last goal I mentioned, an increase in that as well. Let me just wrap up with a little bit of optimism about what's over the horizon. I think we're going to have ag robots in fields all over the U.S., and we're pushing hard to make sure there's a harvest component for that, combining the components that are already in place to put a harvest attachment. That's a robot that's currently available. Work's being done here in Georgia and in Clemson, so I know it's going to be applicable with you, trying to not only lower cost, increase suppliers, increase quality, and increase yield. These will have a positive impact on plastic contamination, but also there's a lot of work going on in the gin labs, trying to come up with low-cost ways to identify plastic and remove it. And the last one I'll mention is a novel weed suppression strategy. If you fertilize with phosphite fertilizer, we have 2 soils here that are both from Texas. The early work is done in Texas. And if you fertilize with phosphite and you have a cotton that can tolerate phosphite, you can see what happens to the weeds versus what happens to the cotton. It's just an incredibly powerful technology that your funding has allowed putting that into cotton. So far, it works in soils that are either low or medium in P, and we're working with some of Teal Warrington soils to try to see if there's a way we can make it work on higher P soils. But basically, it tricks the weed into being deficient with the phosphite. So let me just wrap up by giving you my sense of optimism of where polyester is going to go. This was an Economist cover 4 years ago, thinking about the peak oil. You're familiar with that phrase, basically saying that the environment and innovation is what's tipping the curve on oil. How much carbon dioxide the environment can absorb, but also the amount of innovation, whether it's more efficient trucks and cars, and whether it's fracking and natural gas, whether it's solar and wind energy. All that innovation is tipping the curve. And I think at some point we're going to see this cover on The Economist, where we have yesterday's fiber and the things that are going to drive peak poly that we can see right now, and there'll be other ones. But cotton removes carbon from the atmosphere in both the fabrics and the soil. The fabrics biodegrade. It's a food and a fiber crop, which is a wonderful story with consumers. It gives a lot of reason to produce cotton. The innovation pipeline is full, and polyester pollutes not just the marine plastics, but a bunch of other things. So with that, let me thank you for your attention, and I'm going to be around all morning through lunch. Thank you.
You know, as I sit here this morning, I'm reminded of something that I believe this was coming from our current American Farm Bureau president when he encouraged us to look outside our fence rows. You know, we get so wrapped up in things on a production level and we lose sight of the things. And I hope you see this morning that there's a lot going on outside our fence rows. I don't understand it all. I can't keep up with all of them, but I hope you agree with me that we have some tremendous people working for us throughout the industry, and we just appreciate you guys doing that. I want to ask a favor before we go on. This is probably the only time in my life I'll get to introduce the sitting chairman of the National Cotton Council in his home state. So I ask you to bear with me for a minute or two here. This is a real honor for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it. I had an opportunity last night to go to dinner with some folks, and I got home and I was reminded about the cotton industry. One thing about the cotton industry that I've appreciated and learned over the years, and it's not just about the product that we produce that makes it special, but it's the people that are in it. I sat down with some old friends last night and made some new friends last night, and it was a real pleasure to do that. And it reminded me of the two speakers we have coming up next. Both of these guys fall into that same category for me. They're just people that are just good people, people that you just like to be around, people that you have respect for in so many ways. So our next speaker is indeed the current chairman of the National Cotton Council, Mr. Ronnie Lee from Bromwood, Georgia. It's a rare opportunity to have the chairman from our home state. It's happened, I think, twice before, and so it's a rare opportunity. Ronnie, I guess this is the shortest trip you've ever made to make a speech because he's been all over the world. I mean, he's traveled all over the country and all over the world this year. And what he's going to do is going to get up here and tell you, the first thing he's going to tell you is that it's an honor for him to serve. Ronnie, I'm stealing a little bit of thunder here now, so I apologize. The first thing he's going to say is, it's an honor for me to serve. And it is an honor. It's a great honor. It shows the respect and the admiration that people across the country have for him and electing him as chairman of the council. So it is indeed an honor. I agree with you, Ronnie. The second thing he's going to tell you is he couldn't do it without people at home. And I know that's true too. He's got 3 boys at home that work. I'm not going to list all the businesses you're involved in or all the organizations you're involved in because we'll be here too long. But he'll tell you that his family and his support back home is critical to him. But what he won't tell you is the sacrifice that it requires, the time it requires away from home, the knowledge, the effort, the talking that goes on. It's been a tough time in the cotton industry with different things going on. And Ronnie, sometimes it's like herding cats. You know, it's just, you throw in a bunch of growers from Mississippi and Texas and Georgia, and it's difficult. And Ronnie really supplied great leadership for us throughout the year. He's just been a tremendous asset to the industry. We just appreciate so much all that he's done. I want to share one story. I told you I need to ramble a little bit. I'll share one story with you. We were in a meeting some time back, and it was a gin cost share discussion. And there was a big debate about, by the bale or by weight or by the acre. And Ronnie took a position that was detrimental to him personally, but it was the right thing to do. And I think that's what true leadership is. It's putting aside personal agendas, personal advantages, and just doing the right thing for the industry. And so that's the kind of leadership that he supplied throughout the year. And we just appreciate so much all that he's done. Again, it's just my privilege and honor to introduce to you the current sitting chairman of the National Cotton Council, Ronnie Lee.
Thank you, Lee. All that you've said tells me one thing: you've heard me too many times. It is great to be here. Before I get started, I want to, y'all heard enough about Cotton Incorporated maybe, but just yesterday and the day before yesterday, Sammy Wright and was with a group that had a meeting in Raleigh and told me, he said, Ronnie, I never have been through Cotton Incorporated. He said, I was extremely impressed with what's going on. And he said, the one thing is that every person there is just so excited and dedicated about their job. And look, I remember going when it was at the old place, and it got flooded a time or two, so it had to move. Is that right? And that's the reason that Cotton Incorporated has got such a nice facility and modern facility, and I've been on the board, Jimmy, for 16, 17 years. Seems like yesterday. And that's one. Right. But I mentioned a lot of times, I said, I need to just get off something, you know. I said, Cotton Incorporated is, you know, I ought to get off, but you know what? And the ones of y'all, I mean, how many people have served on Cotton Incorporated here? It is all about the people and the dedication and the makeup from all over the Cotton Belt. And I can't say enough about the work that is done at Cotton Incorporated. I just want to thank you for the invitation to address the Cotton Commission annual meeting today. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to provide remarks from the National Cotton Council and our priorities. And I'm coming ahead of Reece Langley, who will give you a lot more detailed report. I'm just going to touch on what's going on this year. Before providing remarks, I want to thank the leaders of the Georgia Cotton Commission for continuing a long tradition, providing excellent leadership and outstanding financial support for the National Cotton Council and Cotton Council International. I also want to thank Richie Seaton and his staff who do a tremendous job on behalf of the Commission and all cotton growers in our state. Right now, I want to recognize Bob McClendon and Chuck Coley for their leadership and service during their tenure as council chairman. We thank them for their dedication and appreciate all they've accomplished during their terms of service as council chairman. In addition, we're indebted to Shane Stevens for his hard work and valuable service as council chairman in 2016. Likewise, we greatly appreciate Mike Hake's leadership and perseverance these past 2 years as chairman of American Cotton Producers. And as we say ACP, and you hear all these acronyms, you don't know what they mean, but the American Cotton Producers is the producer segment of the council. And that is a very important role. And Mike Tate from North Alabama has been in the hot seat a few times, and he just does a tremendous job, I think. It's been an honor this past year to serve as council chairman. Extreme honor. It's made for a very busy and extremely rewarding year. The job of the council chairman involves a fair amount of travel, from meetings across the belt, in Washington, and even internationally. Despite having a very busy schedule this past year, I've enjoyed the experience of being directly involved with the council and the many issues it has addressed on behalf of our industry. This past year, the council has been focused on a number of priorities, being these securing short-term assistance for cotton producers, developing the council's policy recommendations for the next farm bill, monitoring several trade policy issues, crafting a strategy of enhancing U.S. cotton sustainability message, working to address contamination issues, resolving the issues that are hindering the flow of U.S. cotton. Regarding short-term economic assistance, the council is pursuing another Gen cost share program as a way to help relieve current economic pressures for producers. The council also is pursuing inclusion of a cotton PLC ARC program through appropriations process. And I would note the House version of the disaster supplemental appropriations bill was passed last year just before Christmas includes language authorizing seed cotton's eligibility for ARC PLC programs for the 18 crop. Senate action will occur hopefully in the coming weeks, and I hope real soon. And their bill could contain cotton seed ARC PLC provisions similar to the version approved by the Senate Appropriations Committee last summer. And Reece will talk more about the details. The council has policy that support both these programs and are working closely with our friends in both legislative bodies, quick action, finalizing disaster supplemental legislation that includes the provision for bringing cotton back into Title I ahead of the next farm bill. The council also been very focused on the development of cotton policy for the 2018 farm bill. At the center of our strategy is getting cotton included Title I new farm bill. That's the main thing. We got to get back to Title I. Initial industry discussions began last spring's ACP meeting, and there were numerous follow-up sessions by ACP Farm Policy Task Force. The full ACP and the Council's Farm Policy Task Force, one of the ACP's Farm Policy Task Force meetings, which was conducted in July, was held in conjunction with a fly-in to Washington, D.C., where the task force was accompanied by representatives, producer interest organizations, and we split into teams to visit more than 150 congressional offices of Cotton Belt and other members. It's the best trip to Washington I've ever experienced. We did that in a day and a half. Did a lot of walking there. And it did a lot of good because we visited people that weren't from cotton country, and I think that was really good. Earlier this month, the Cotton Board met by conference call to adopt a full set of Farm Bill recommendations. Among other provisions, these address seed cotton as a covered commodity in ARC PLC, generic base acreage conversion, cotton payment yield updates, improvements in operation of marketing loan, additional resources for the economic adjustment assistance for U.S. textile mills, and improvements for the actively engaged definition for program eligibility. In addition to our work on short-term economic assistance, the development of cotton policy for the next farm bill, the council has been very active on the trade front, ranging from renegotiation of NAFTA, China market access, cotton discussions at the WTO ministerial in Argentina. Regarding NAFTA, the council submitted comments that emphasized the need to preserve that agreement's current benefits while encouraging further regional integration of the cotton and textile supply chain. Regarding China market access, during a trip to China last year, Gary Adams and I had the opportunity to meet with the government research agency regarding projections of China's cotton supply and demand. They included that China's production and consumption are expected to be relatively stable, and their stocks would likely reach a normal level after 2018. Once that level is achieved, imports would increase to between 9 and 11 million bales. Other officials indicated that stocks could reach a normal level after this past year's auctions. Overall, I left China with an optimistic view of their demand for cotton, U.S. cotton. They even talked about helping increase quotas, so it was very positive. Gary and I also attended the WTO ministerial in Argentina last month. Following the trip, we thanked the U.S. Trade Representative and his negotiating team for their leadership and efforts to ensure WTO remains focused on a long-term goal of a balanced outcome that will expand trade. We believe this is especially important for cotton, as some WTO members continue to call for concessions above and beyond reforms we've already made, and with nothing in return. In the area of sustainability, our ongoing challenge is to continue to expand the acceptance of major textile brands and retailers that U.S. cotton is responsibly produced and that our growers are working to continuously strengthen our environmental footprint. The council established a sustainability force that met 3 times last year to develop industry-wide goals for measurable and continual improvements in the environmental stewardship, farm productivity, and resource efficiency. U.S. Cotton sustainability message is being reinforced by Cotton Council International's new initiative. Cotton USA is a Cotton the World Trust, which is being carried to more than 50 countries. I want to make some comments right there, and Matt, Coley, and I have been to those meetings, and it's you know, when you do what we do, we feel like we shouldn't have to tell our story because we know that we're sustainable compared to what we are competing against. That's not the way it works. And we've got to do everything we can do to prove that we're sustainable. It's not just cotton. Every commodity, everything's in that same boat. But I ask each and every grower in here that whenever this the program is finalized and all, when you have an opportunity to give information about your farm, don't hesitate to do it. Take that time and sign up your farm, and so it can be verified. We've got to have a certain percentage of farmers to do it. And there's already one group that's doing that, and it's really not. It's really just going through the motions, in my opinion, Matt. Not really doing what we want to do as the council and the U.S. cotton industry. And I think that most brands and retailers know that we're sustainable. I mean, they know that. We've proved that. But there's a big term called third-party verification. And that's what we got to have. And that's what we're working on, but we want to be doing the right thing. So whenever the time comes and you need to do it, don't just say, well, I'm too busy. I don't have time for that, because it's one of the most important things going on right now. Through the Quality Task Force chaired by Kent Fountain, the council also is closely monitoring incidences of lint contamination being reported by our textile customers, both foreign and domestic, and is developing educational programs and working on research to detect and remove contamination at the gin. Before I go any further, that is the one threat that we have in U.S. cotton. And a lot of it is because of the pickers we run. Another one is, and I'm in an area right here, don't have it much where my customers are and where we farm, but the black plastic is also an issue where you're growing vegetables. When you're in a meal in China and they throw a bag of plastic on the table, it's yellow and black, but a lot of yellow, and they know where the yellow came from. So we've got to do everything that we can to maintain our reputation of being contamination free. And it's got to be done all the way through, and then hopefully we can detect and remove what's left at the gym. But last October, I conducted a contamination education program at my GN's customers, for my GN's customers, that focused on the things that can be done in operating the pickers and at the gin to help eliminate the threat of contamination. All these sessions were videotaped and will be used in future educational programs by the council. That was just my doing, my thought, because I thought it had to start at that guy on the picker. And also with you as farm managers and owners, if you ride around, you see a grocery bag or anything hung up in a cotton plant, stop and get it out. Your cotton picker operators ought to stop and get off. They don't think they should do that, but that's where it's got to start. We got to work on it at every level after that. And, you know, we just got to continue to make contamination elimination top priority so that U.S. cotton maintains its excellent reputation. You know, I made myself a note a while ago. The Southeast and Georgia, especially for cotton and peanuts both, you know, we're sort of in what people say the catbird seat if you really know it. I mean, we got quality, we're dependable, we're close to the ports, we know it's sustainable, we got to prove it, and we got to deal with contamination. And I happen to have a reason to know this, but we got some of the best gins operations in the Southeast in this country, and they're run really good. On another important front, the council established a cotton flow working group with overall charge of studying the issues that hinder U.S. cotton flow. That working group, chaired by Missouri Lieutenant David Blakemore, had 4 productive meetings last year where they investigated other countries' flow practices and developed a number of recommendations for rewarding prompt service and penalizing those practices that impede flow. This is a big issue with some of the merchants. Finally, I would mention that Southern cotton growers and Southeast units have a very effective political action committee, CASP. I urge you to support the PAC along with the council committee for the advancement of cotton. We must be politically strong to successfully address all these issues. Some of you might think that shouldn't be necessary, but I can tell you the trip to Washington and things, if you don't get a check out there every now and then, somebody else might get their attention before you know ahead of you. You know, in wrapping up, I would remind you that the council's annual meeting will be in Fort Worth, Texas next week now. I know many of you plan to attend, but let me say a special word of thanks to the council's producer and generous delegates from our state. The work that you will do there is very important to our industry as it helps the council identify the key issues and develop necessary policies for the coming year. And let me thank each of you again for your strong support for the council and its program. Again, I've truly enjoyed my year of service as chairman of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a few comments, concerning council's efforts to address the industry's priorities. It has been an honor to serve from the state of Georgia. Thank you.
All right, Ronnie, we just appreciate all you've done, the sacrifice you made on behalf of the industry and each of us in this room. So until you're better paid, thank you. Our last speaker comes to us from lives in Alexandria, Virginia, works out of Washington, D.C. He is the Vice President of National Cotton Council in charge of Washington operations. Reece grew up on a family farm in Athens, Alabama. Reece, I never thought about you being from Auburn and Gary being from Alabama. That's makes pretty interesting conversation sometimes like that. Yeah, but we appreciate Reece being here. I'm gonna cut this kind of short, but Reece is a very humble guy, a very dedicated guy to the cotton industry. He works hard, he's intelligent, he just does a tremendous job for us in Washington. and above all else, I think what I've come to notice over the years is he is very well respected in D.C. When he walks, he just he walks the halls of Washington. He's well respected and well thought of, and I'm just proud that he represents us in the industry. So thank you, Reece.
Thank you, Lee, for that introduction, and thank you to all the commission leadership and staff for the opportunity to be here. And, I know I'm the last thing standing between you all and lunch, so we'll try to get through this as efficiently as we can. As far as today, what we'd like to cover is a little bit of what we expect Congress to try to act on this year, given that it is an election year, and then give you an outlook on the new farm bill, the development for that, and timing, and then also an update on our efforts to try to get some short-term economic relief for the cotton industry, a little bit on crop insurance, a trade update, and so starting off with the congressional agenda, really the big thing that's hanging over Congress and their ability to get anything else done right now is figuring a way out of this funding situation that they find themselves in. So here we are, 1st of February, 4 months into the new fiscal year that started October 1, and we still don't have a full year funding bill that's been passed by Congress. It's been now a series of 4 short-term spending bills just kicking the can a little bit further down the road. And so until they figure out how to come together, both parties, House and Senate, and pass a comprehensive funding bill for the remainder of this year, this issue is going to continue to take up most of the oxygen in Congress, and not much else will get done. And so now what's happening, that unfinished work on funding the current fiscal year is starting to now collide with and impact Congress's ability to start working on the funding bills that need to be in place by this coming October. And then you lay on top of that the fact that Congress is going to have to increase the debt limit probably by the end of February, early March. And then there's also a disaster spending bill that's still pending. This is in response to all of the natural disasters that occurred in 2017. So all of that's going to need to be wrapped up, hopefully in one broad package in the next few weeks, and then Congress can move on to some of these other items. Now, some of the other big issues, obviously, immigration policy and trying to figure out a path forward on that. And then the farm bill, which we hope will be part of the discussion. And then also infrastructure package, which may potentially come together. As far as the farm bill goes, as you all know, both the House and Senate Ag Committees have done a lot of groundwork and gathered a lot of feedback from across the country over the last 2 years. And many of you, I know, have had the opportunity to testify at either field hearings or listening sessions, and thank you for taking the time to do that. As far as the timing, it looks like both the House and Senate Ag Committees are going to try to move the bill through their respective committees in the first quarter of this year. So hopefully by the end of March. And then we'll have to see what it looks like as far as the ability to get those bills across the House and Senate floors. And getting floor time in the Senate can be a challenge, especially given the number of nominations that still need to be moved for the new administration and other issues, again, such as immigration policy. But what needs to happen is we need to see both the House and Senate versions of the Farm Bill through both of the chambers, hopefully by this summer, so then they can work out the differences between those two and try to get that bill enacted, ideally before the midterm elections. If it doesn't happen by then I think we're very likely to be looking at an extension of the existing Farm Bill at least through the 2019 crop year. Some of the big challenges generally that we all face when it comes to getting a good Farm Bill in place, the big one is the budget, the fact that there's not going to be any new dollars for this Farm Bill. And there are also programs in the Farm Bill that don't have any funding to continue them. So how do the Ag Committees try to figure out a path forward on that? Secondly, addressing both cotton and dairy policy. Those are the two commodities that are regularly accepted that have to be addressed when it comes to the new Farm Bill, if not handled before then. And then there are going to be a number of new funding requests that are coming forward, some from the livestock sector that will take new money. And then just all of the outside groups that continue to criticize and attack the Farm Bill. And that's from groups on the far left, like the Environmental Working Group, to entities on the far right, like the Heritage Foundation and American Enterprise Institute. One recent example from AEI is just this week, they have released studies attacking cotton policy, peanut policy, and dairy policy. And they are continuing to beat the drums in DC, holding briefings with congressional staff, et cetera. And they're only getting louder and more forceful. And so that is a huge challenge that we all face within agriculture. But then if we look specifically at the challenges that we face for cotton in the new Farm Bill, again, we all recognize that we don't have an effective price protection program today. And so we've got to figure out, as Ronnie said, how do we get back into Title I within ARC and PLC. You know, we are faced with, have been faced with since the 14 Farm Bill passed, a declining baseline for cotton. So fewer dollars every year that are available to restructure the cotton program. And then we continue to face a lot of pressure from other countries in the international trade arena that want to continue to say that we have to reform cotton policy even further. And then we still are dealing with the legacy of the Brazil WTO case and the fact that we had to make changes in the 14 bill to comply with that ruling. But now we have some in Congress that say, well, given that, how can you expect us to support trying to go back the other direction and try to provide a better safety net for cotton? So those are all significant challenges as well. Where the cotton industry is, though, as Ronnie outlined, we have now, after 2+ years of development, come up with a very comprehensive recommendation for the new Farm Bill of how we think to establish a strong safety net. And that is to get cotton back in Title I, eligible for the ARC and PLC programs, and to do that based on seed cotton. And you know, obviously most of the prior Farm Bill programs have been based purely on cotton lint. There's never been a program typically that was based on cotton seed. But in the interim, we've been looking at cotton seed as a way to provide some short-term relief, and that's still in the works. But for the Farm Bill, long-term, to have a true safety net, we want to try to provide support based on the value of both the lint and the seed, that combined value of the two products together. So making seed cotton a covered commodity for the Farm Bill. We're recommending a reference price or support price around 38 to 39 cents a pound. That's an aggressive level that will obviously be determined by the budget resources, but that's our goal that we're aiming for. And then a couple of other key pieces to this. One is we want to make sure that we can update our payment yields for cotton. All the other program crops were able to do that in the 14 Farm Bill, and cotton was not, because we were not a covered commodity. So we need that opportunity now to catch up with where the other crops are. And then the second piece of this is how do we establish cotton base acres moving forward so we know what acres are eligible for the program, since today we only have generic base. And so we've established or recommended a couple of options on how to convert generic base either back to cotton base or other covered commodity bases. And we have a chart here or a graphic that will show that a little bit clearer. But essentially, if you want to try to maximize cotton base, you have the choice to convert either 80% of your generic to cotton or look at your 4-year average plantings of cotton between 09 and 12. And you can convert that many acres from generic to cotton base. The other option, which is probably going to be more attractive here in South Georgia and throughout a lot of the Southeast, is to convert all of your generic base based on your planting history of all crops between 09 and 12. So where you're in a cotton and peanut rotation, you could convert generic based on your planting history of those two crops, or cotton, peanuts, and corn, whatever your crop mix may have been. So those are your options on generic-based conversion. Another thing to keep in mind that we had to do regarding generic base, and this was all driven by the budget and trying to figure out a way to control the cost of the program, but at the same time maximize those resources on the acres that are still in production. And that is to say, okay, if we have a farm with generic base and there's not been any program crop or cotton planted on that farm at any point from 09 through 2016, let's take those acres out of the program. And that's a pretty big step, but again, when we're dealing with limited budget resources, we're trying to figure out how we maximize support to those acres that are in production. So this is the visual that I mentioned, again, outlining the two options on how to convert generic base. Again, option one is if you want to just maximize cotton base only. Option two is to try to would allow you to convert all generic based on your planning history between 2009 and 2012. Some of the other features that we're looking at for the new Farm Bill. With regard to the marketing loan program, we want to, one, address the current formula that's in place. And again, this was brought about because of the Brazil WTO case, and that is to limit the amount of the loan rate decline that can occur at any given year. Right now, it adjusts based on a 2-year moving average, and we saw that happen with the 2017 crop. It went from 52 cents a pound to 49.5. So to try to limit that much variation, we're saying let's put a 2% limitation on how much the loan rate can decline any given year. But otherwise, we won't modify the formula that's in the Farm Bill. And then there are a few other technical modifications that we hope to make to the adjusted world price calculation that USDA does. These are intended to try to help make U.S. cotton more competitive globally. Ronnie mentioned the work of the Cotton Flow Committee and trying to look at some ways to enhance the timely shipping of cotton through the various marketing channels. And so we're looking at this as a way, or hopefully, to try to incorporate this into the marketing loan program in the Farm Bill. But we're going to have to see what the cost is, see if this is something that's feasible, both from a cost perspective, but also politically in Congress. But the idea is to try to reward warehouses and shippers that are shipping cotton early in the marketing year and getting those out of the loan program and into the marketplace, and creating a credit system that then could be used to the future toward the future redemption of other cotton out of the marketing loan program. A couple of other items that we're looking at. One is important to the U.S. textile mill. The Economic Adjustment Assistance Program, it's been around since the 2008 Farm Bill. It provides a payment to our textile mills for every pound of cotton that they're spending. And so that has been instrumental in helping mills invest in new equipment, new infrastructure, become more efficient. We'd like to see that payment rate increase slightly by 1/4 cent per pound. And then finally, on the issue of actively engaged in farming. So this was a huge debate during the 2014 Farm Bill. And certain members of Congress wanted to try to tighten down the regulations and rules that determine who is eligible for the programs. And so they were successful partially in doing that. But one compromise was to say, okay, we're not going to require these tighter rules to apply to family farms, family operations. The issue, though, that has developed is the family definition that's referred to is a fairly strict interpretation. It says it has to be lineal family members. So what we've found in the 14 Farm Bill, now that it has been implemented, there are a number of operations where if you have first cousins or nieces or nephews involved, they're not considered lineal, and therefore that entire operation is not considered a family farm and has to meet these stricter requirements. So what we would like to do in this Farm Bill is relax that definition, broaden it to make sure we're including those broader family members in that definition. And then finally, on the STAX program, which as you all know was put in place in the 14 bill, intended to be the safety net for cotton because of the Brazil case. We're not saying to do away with the STAX program. It has a role and it has its place. And one of those areas is going to be for farms where you don't have any generic base today. You won't have the ability to establish new cotton base. So STAX could remain an option that you could purchase as a portion of your safety net. So if you don't have a cotton program in ARC and PLC, you don't have cotton base acres, you could still have the option to purchase STAX. Okay, so that's it on the Farm Bill. Now I want to shift gears and talk about our efforts to try to get some short-term economic relief for the industry. So in December, the House passed a supplemental disaster bill, and that bill did include a provision that would bring cotton back into Title I, starting with the 2018 crop, so 1 year ahead of the new Farm Bill. It would do so based on the seed cotton policy that I just explained. A big difference, though, is the reference price would be at 36.7 cents a pound, not the higher rate that we were recommending in the new farm bill. The reason for that is, on the House side, we were told if we wanted to include a cotton policy, it had to be budget neutral or paid for. And so that was as high as we could get the reference price and keep it at no new cost. As far as the payment yield update and the conversion of generic base, that's all very consistent with our recommendations for the farm bill. Now, as far as what's going to happen with the supplemental and what the House and Senate negotiate, very much up in the air at this point. There are obviously different options here. Probably the most likely one is that the House and Senate are going to come together now on a large package that will include the disaster bill, the full year funding bill, the debt limit increase, and maybe some other items. Put all of that into one or two large packages and try to move that through. But that's going to require negotiation by both parties in both the House and Senate. And unfortunately, we may not see any resolution on that until late February, even into March. So obviously the timing is becoming more and more critical on this. The other thing that's in play here is cottonseed. I mentioned that earlier as a short-term measure to try to get relief ahead of the farm bill. So in the Senate Agriculture Appropriations Bill that they passed last summer, there's a provision to make cottonseed eligible for Title I, starting with the 2018 crop. And it would have a reference price of at least $15 a hundredweight on cottonseed. The payment yield and base conversion options, again, are the same as what we talked about for the farm bill and same as what's in the House disaster bill. And this policy would actually add at least $500 million in new money for cotton that would add to the cotton baseline for the next farm bill. And so we have these two options in play to try to get short-term relief for cotton for the 2018 crop. And so we're very optimistic that one of these two is hopefully going to make it into that final package in February or March, and we'll have that in place. And if so, then that positions us very well moving into the farm bill debate going forward. The final piece on short-term relief is the cotton ginning cost share program. So you'll recall that the previous administration operated that program for 1 year based on the 2015 cotton crop. Those payments came in the summer of 16. We have been working with the new administration, Secretary Perdue and his team, to try to get them to run this program at least one more year to help with the 2016 crop. And it would be based on planted acres in 16. And we think we've made a lot of progress. The program, if it's announced, it will not be as much total money as the first program in 15, probably about half the total amount. But it would be, we think, again, important relief that we could get hopefully in the very near term. One of the things on timing here, though, is given all of the natural disasters that occurred last year that impacted a lot in agriculture, the citrus industry, livestock industry, etc. All of those individuals are going to have to get relief through the disaster bill that Congress is still working on. So USDA doesn't want to come out now and announce a GIN cost share program for cotton when they don't know what's coming for these other crops that were also impacted last year. So we think the timing will be such that once Congress completes work on its disaster bill and they know there's relief coming for these other industries, then hopefully USDA can move forward with announcing one more year of the GIN cost share program. On crop insurance, just a couple of brief mentions. The biggest thing I think in the Southeast are the changes that did occur for the 18 crop on quality loss provisions. You all know that in 15 and 16 we had a lot of issues with quality losses, and the provisions that have been in the crop insurance policy just really don't work well when it comes to quality loss. These changes have been made now, and working with USDA, we think it's going to be a much better provision. It's patterned somewhat after the quality loss provisions that are currently in the peanut crop insurance policy. And then there's some other things that we think will be helpful where now you can insure using enterprise units by practice, irrigated and non-irrigated. Now on trade for just a moment, if we look at our top export markets as of the end of last year, you can see top 5, China, Vietnam, Turkey, Pakistan, and Mexico. Though that's where a bulk of our exports are going to those key markets. So as it relates to NAFTA and the renegotiation, obviously a lot at stake there for our industry. We're exporting about 1 million bales of raw cotton and then another 1 million bale equivalent of textile products from the U.S. So first of all, we need to make sure we maintain that agreement, maintain those duty-free benefits. But at the same time, there are some things that can be improved within the textile provision. Some loopholes that we believe can be closed that will help our U.S. textile sector and make sure that the benefits under this agreement are only accruing to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and not to other countries that may be trying to exploit some of these loopholes and ship products into the U.S. duty-free. The 3 countries have gone through 6 negotiating rounds so far. The next one will be in late February. We expect this negotiation to drag on at least through mid-2018, possibly even longer than that. And then on China, Ronnie talked about what they heard on their trip last year. Again, we think it's fairly positive all around. If you look at what's happening with the stockpile situation in China, and they've been able to work through it over the last 2 years, they plan to operate that auction program for 1 more year, starting this March. And if it goes along like the last 2 have, then that should bring down their stockpiles to what they consider to be a reasonable level. And once that happens, given the amount of cotton they're consuming in their textile industry relative to what they're producing, and their production is staying relatively stable, then they're going to have about a 15 million bale gap annually that they need to fill through imported cotton. And so hopefully the U.S. can help meet a lot of that demand. The last thing I'll touch on, I know Cater talked about it some, and as did Ronnie, but this issue of lint contamination. And it is a critically important issue that we all have to be vigilant to try to address. This is a picture of cotton from a spinners association in Japan, where they found this in some U.S. cotton last summer. Obviously not the type of situation that we need to see continue. So, and the other thing to be aware of, starting with the 17 crop, all of the cotton classing offices across the cotton belt have told us they're seeing an increased occurrence of finding plastic in the samples. And they're now starting to dock those samples, depending on the amount of plastic they find, but a relatively steep discount. So we are very focused, again, working with CI and all of the various organizations within the cotton industry to try to, one, move forward on research that can help, but also just education. I think we all have to redouble our education efforts to try to make sure everyone is remaining focused on this and how to address it. And so one of the things we're doing is developing a new educational video that will get out soon that can be used throughout the industry and all the various segments. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and thank you all for your support of the National Cotton Council and for all that you do. Be happy to take any questions or comments, if there are any. Okay, thanks again.
Thank you, Reece. I think you've heard from the comments of our speakers today. We have a lot of cotton organizations, but you see how we all work together to move forward for common goals of our industry. Let's give all our speakers another hand.